We're wired as men to fix things, not feel them. Let me say that again. We're wired to fix things, not feel them. We cut off feel, but really feeling is the superpower. Feeling is actually, when we do it in the right way, when we develop that emotional intelligence, the action we take is way more guided, has way better intention, and way better outcome typically. Action taken from stress does not have a good outcome. Action taken from a knowing has a way better outcome. My mentor, Donnie Epstein, will say, if it doesn't come from soul, it's going to be a redo. When you're trying to figure it out, when you're trying to understand how, and this is the two most common responses I get from men, like, I just need to figure it out and I want to know how to do it. They're coming from their mind, specifically the lower mind, the part of their mind that's running that fight or flight, and the actions will be congruent with that. Welcome. Another episode of the Ignite the King podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Diamond, and today we're going to dive into 4 super important aspects of men's work. I get a lot of questions around what is men's work? What do you guys do? What happens at your immersions? And I want to give a real high-level overview of 4 aspects of men's work that are just fundamental to get. This will be the basis of a masterclass that I'll be hosting pretty soon. But it's going to talk about shadow work. It's going to talk about archetypes. It's going to talk about the 5 pillars or pains that men go through in life, and also the AAA strategy, how to actually do the work and move through the different energies. So men's work in a beautiful way is becoming more and more the mainstream, more normalized. That's why we have this podcast. That's what we're all about, is teaching men how to be better men that are doing well in their life, that want to take it to the next level, men that want relationships and want to take it to the next level, men that are having children, men that are growing in all the possible ways and want to have quote unquote balance, but there really isn't such a thing as balance. It's about integration. So first I want to talk about the shadow. And this is a key important concept to get. Basically, the shadow are the unhealed parts of yourself. The shadow are the parts that are repressed, that are hidden, that ultimately express themselves in negative ways, negative behaviors. And we'll get in a moment into the different archetypes and how they specifically express through those archetypes. But shadow work, first coined by Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, contemporary of Freud, really the father of analytical psychology, describes this concept of the shadow. And the shadow is the part of ourselves that didn't evolve, arrested development, that didn't grow, that basically was traumatized or stifled at some point through conditioning in our life. And it's the part that plays out most often when we're not aware of it. And often people will say the shadow is something to be killed or to, taken out. And really it's an integration of these parts of ourselves. So the shadow is the part that wants to sit on our shoulder and be the enemy and the devil and tell us what to do when our guard is down. And the shadow is something to be aware of. These are the patterns that you play out every day in your life. Something I really like to point out is that shadow, that belief that it really never goes away at a core fundamental level. We can reframe and rewrite what beliefs and what stories we're playing. And that is how we integrate that shadow. But that core conditioning, that core moment, that core programming that came on, if it happened, especially in that first 7 years of life, is a hardwired thing in your nervous system. It is there. It is cunning. It is sly. It is sneaky. It will wait until your resistance is down and then it'll pounce. So a big part of men's work, a big part of quote unquote doing the work is shadow work, is being aware of these darker, more repressed parts of yourself that basically need a voice. They need to come through in a safe, healthy, and non-judgmental way. I mean, that's why Ignite King exists. That's why other men's group exists, to be able to go into a container where it's okay to move through and work through and express those feelings. Super important. So the shadow is that part that really needs to come forward, that needs to get expressed, and ultimately it will express itself in some kind of bad behavior, shadow behavior. So the archetypes that correlate with this shadow are the 4 masculine archetypes. This is the parts of you that are inherent in you, inherent in every other man out there. So these are the lover, warrior, the magician, the king. Douglas Moore and Roger Gillette wrote the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover about the archetypes. It's like the Bible of men's work as far as the archetypal work. And each of these archetypes as I said before, they are inherent energies that exist within inside of you. So this is regardless of your personality, regardless of your ego. These are the archetypes that are expressing themselves on a daily basis. Your lover is your heart. Your lover is your feeling body. Your lover is your life force. It's the lowest level core wiring, hardwiring in your nervous system. The warrior is about action. The warrior is about being decisive, having courage, having goals, having focus. The warrior gets shit done. The magician, that's always the one that sort of throws people off a little bit. The magician is part of your soul energy and your higher self, your intuition, your knowing, your ability to see the field and see possibility. Your knowing is like the tactician. He's the one that blesses. He's the wise one. He's the one that has the vision for your legacy. The king really is the one who integrates all of the other archetype as the expression through himself. And although like in Ignite, we go through seasons of these archetypes are operating in your nervous system all the time. Now, there's probably some of these that you may resonate more with, and there's some of them you may resonate less with. So I want you to ask yourself, when you think of the lover, when you think of the warrior, when you think of the magician, and you think of the king, which one of these really resonates with your energetic? Which one do you feel like you have more of a pull to? Do you feel more kingly and more sovereign in your energy? Do you feel like you can get shit done and more in the warrior mode and being able to break through barriers? Do you feel more connected to your lover and your heart and intimacy and passion? Do you feel connected to your magician, your knowing, your intuition, seeing what's going on 3-4 layers deeper, being able to tune in and pick up on things before they happen? Where's your strength relative to these archetypes? So it is about building strength in the ones that you feel connected to, but it is also about learning to work with the ones that may need more help. And the ones that need more help are probably expressing the shadow. And as I said earlier, the shadow expresses itself through the archetype. So for example, you have a shadow lover, and these break down to both a positive and a negative pole. The positive would be like a battery, like the charged energy, and the negative will be more the passive energy. So for example, the lover is more of the addicted lover in its positive shadow, which will be things like addictions and vices and not having self-control or discipline and being like the shiny object, or the grass is always greener, or you can never be sustained or fulfilled. It's like always seeking, searching. A lot of our vices of gambling, pornography, weed smoking, drinking, all of the things that we do habitually that we're always trying to seek and feel another feeling would be signs that your addicted lover, your shadow lover, the positive pole is expressing itself in a negative way. Conversely, the negative pole of the lover is going to be the weakling, or the one that acquiesces and gives his energy and power away. The one, and that's also as well the shadow king. So the shadow lover is going to be more passive. It's going to be the impotent lover. It's going to be kind of just the blah feeling of mad, just kind of like you've been sitting in the bath all day, all wrinkly, and just have like limp or no energy. The reality is that as men, as human beings, we're going to feel certain aspects of both sides of every archetype. Now, the question you start asking yourself is, which one do I gravitate more to? Do I have more of the addictive tendencies? Do I have more of the impotent energies? And really be honest with yourself. The work is about looking in the mirror, about taking inventory. And this ties into our AAA, which is awareness, acknowledgement, and action, but really having awareness and being able to be honest with yourself and say, I know these things exist. How do they show up in me? Because for you to say they don't exist, I'll tell you, with all the men I've worked with over the years, that's a bullshit lie. That's just not true. We all have this, and we need to take ownership. You need to take radical ownership of where your shadow behaviors, because the shadow behaviors will cause lots of pain and lots of destruction in your life. A moment of misguided passion in the lover energy will destroy a marriage, will destroy a family. A moment of the shadow tyrant king in business can destroy a reputation, can destroy a business overnight. So these energies are powerful, they're inherent, and they're absolutely important to master. So it's important to take the time to get to know specifically your constitution or your amalgam of how you do you. This is really, again, level of awareness And then the acknowledgement part is owning it, radical ownership, acknowledgement, accountability, integrity, empathy, feeling where the impacts of those behaviors of the shadow archetypes have shown up and who they've caused pain to, whether it be yourself, your loved ones. And ironically, we tend to hurt the ones we love the most for whatever reason. Maybe they're the closest to us all the time, but we tend to hurt the people we love the most. So this is where taking ownership, accountability for your actions, recognizing the impact that those behaviors have on yourself and others, and taking full responsibility and full ownership of that. This is a key piece of the process of doing shadow work. Most men will want to go right to action, the last A, once there's an uncomfortable awareness, because we don't want to be with the feeling. We don't want to be with the pain. How do I fix it? How do I just make it better? How do I bypass having to look at it and feel it? How many of you men out there in relationship have had that feeling where your partner brings up something and you want to just quickly move past it? And I'm raising my hand because I used to do this all the time. It's not the time. I don't want to talk about it. Walk away, run away. And it's like, where are you running to? Part of the work is taking radical ownership, turning and facing whatever the thing is, whatever the conversation is, and having it and working through it. And as painful as it may feel in the moment, the liberation and unbound energy that becomes available as a result is so far greater than anything you could have figured out in your mind. This is why the process of doing this work is so important and understanding how the archetypes show up. So just to fill out, again, some of this archetypal energy, because it's really important to get, our warrior, the one that's decisive, the one that takes action, the one that has focus and goals, that acts out of a code, that is in service. When it's in its shadow, it's either the bully or the coward. And the bully will just trample over everything in its way to get what it wants. This is also where classically the workaholic will show up. So if you're one of those high achieving men, and a lot of you men that listen to this podcast are that level of man in your life, and when you get stressed, when you get overwhelmed, when you get in that just like work zone, you become the workaholic. And it's that same kind of shadow warrior energy where it gets cutthroat. Becomes a bully, becomes, dog eat dog world. Conversely, the coward, the one that's on the sideline, that's scared to engage, that's scared to take action, that is like, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, but never actually pulls the trigger, that stays on the sideline, that gives up his power, that has no boundaries. So the shadow warrior in the world can show up in some pretty intense ways. And kind of just moving forward to the magician energy, because this is a big one. And again, as I said before, a lot of men get a little confused by the magician. Just think of the magician as your knowing. This is where we start to move from the upper part of the mind into soul energy, intuition, clairvoyance, field. All of those types of experiences start to become the baseline. The magician, that's the one that's going to see possibility. If you want to break it down just to neuroscience, it's the part of your frontal lobe of your brain that gets activated when you can see how things are going to play out, when you can see cause and effect, when you can see consequence, when you can have a bigger map of the world and what's going on. By the way, this is the part of the brain that loses up to about 40% of its blood flow and its nerve activity when you are in a stress state. Even in a low-level stress state, 40% of the blood flow and nerve activity will shunt away from the higher centers of the brain and will go to the amygdala, the midbrain, the part of your nervous system where the fight or flight centers live. And when we're in fight or flight, it's like a spotlight on a stage. You can only see so much. You lose the bigger picture of what's going on, as like you would be putting the house lights up on a stage. So that house lights, that's really the subconscious. Our conscious mind is only focused on about maybe 10% of what's going on in your daily life, which is just a kind of a wild thing to think about. When you're having all these experiences all throughout the day, you're taking in all this energy and information, but really what you're consciously engaged with is about 10% of the energy. It's the experience if you drive the same route to work every day and you drive home and you pull in your driveway and you almost don't even remember how you got there. Why? Because your subconscious is driving the ship. And it really needs to, because if you were to have to pay attention to every single thing that was going on, you would just be completely overwhelmed. However, your magician can tap into some of this, raise its awareness, turn those house lights up, see more of the subtle energetics of what's going on. And when it does that, it can start to put dots together. It can start to connect how and why and where and the who that needs to shuffle and move throughout your life to organize for things to manifest, for things to be experienced at a very different level than just, A plus B equals C plus D equals E. All of that, we need to tap into this higher sense of awareness. Now, the shadow of this magician, and this is where it can get really intense. This is the tricksters of the world. This is the trickster within you. This is the one that is conniving and sneaky and manipulates the energy in the situation. Often in business and sales, work with a lot of sales guys, the tactics, the strategies, a lot of that can have shadow magician energy because there is an agenda. Whenever there's an agenda and you're trying to coerce or manipulate or get someone to make a decision based on your agenda, this is a shadow magician classically showing up. And the other side of that shadow magician is that's the positive pole. The negative pole is going to be what we call the innocent one, the one that's more passive in this process, that allows things conveniently to unfold in a certain way that benefits him, and then claim that he didn't know or didn't understand what was going on, when in fact that part of you did know. That part of you was quietly conniving or sneaking or wanting things to happen in a certain way. This is the part of you that can often be passive aggressive. I know passive aggressive well, and it doesn't work. Or sideways judgments to take out someone else, typically your partner or someone you love the most, where you know right where to put the arrow in to make them hurt the most. That is the passive pole of the shadow magician. This is also where the saboteur comes in, where you ever notice when maybe you're doing really well and then you do something to take yourself out, you self-sabotage. This is the saboteur. This is the even sneaky part of your own awareness, consciousness that takes you out. And the other key way, and I want to really talk about this, that the shadow magician will show up is beyond just the passive aggressive. It's beyond that innocent one. It's the analysis paralysis, where we just get stuck in a loop of our own thoughts. Again, we are on the sideline and we're never getting in the game. We're aim, but never fire. The analysis paralysis, when you make a list of the positive and negatives of a choice and it just keeps growing the list, but you never actually get to any decision. Because the sacred third, or what we call the natural expression of the archetype of the magician, is the initiator, is the one that takes action, is one that puts the plan into place. Now, the warrior energy, that's boots on the ground. That's going to get things going. It's going to build things. But it's the initiation, that crossing over of the energy, that taps the magician. So lastly, I want to talk about the king for a moment. Now, hopefully you're starting to have some awarenesses come up. Hopefully you're starting to see where you can take ownership for these different energies in your life. And once you start taking real ownership, that's when things start to change. And we'll get to that in a moment. But the king is the culmination, the integration of all of these energies. It is ultimately, as a man, who you are. In Ignite the King, we talk about 4 pillars of kingship. One is sovereignty. It's having sovereignty over yourself and your body and your family and your rights and who you are as an individual and your divine connection with God, or whatever you call that energy. That is the king energy. It is the sovereign part of you. Second pillar is order. A king's job is to bring order to his kingdom, to have fertile lands for those inside his walls, to feel safe, your family, your loved ones. When there is chaos in your life, there's chaos in your kingdom. So the king energy, the order in the kingdom, is all about keeping people safe, keeping your lands growing, keeping allyship with your neighbors, and having the stability there and the foundation for your family to live on. Third is blessing. This is such a key component of living king energy, is both giving and receiving of blessing. So many reasons why men that I work with now didn't fully mature or have wounds or conditioning, or based on the fact of not receiving proper blessing in their life from a male figurehead, whether it be your father, whether it be a coach, whether it be some kind of mentor that is pouring into you, that is giving you energy, that is teaching you how to take care of yourself, how to have self-confidence, self-esteem, how to know that you're maturing. This is an absolute essential part of any child's upbringing. And not only did many men not experience blessing, they experienced quite the opposite. They experienced trauma. They experienced fathers or other figureheads yelling at them, putting them down, making them feel worse or less than they were. So not only are we having to heal from that, but then starting to move into the power of blessing. And I truly believe that blessing is one of the most powerful things we can both give and receive in this world. And the last piece of kingship is legacy. And legacy, of course, is what's left in your wake when you're not here. What's going to live on as a result of you being here? What is the movement of your evolutionary baton in your life and your family? What in your family line, both of you not taking with you, and what are you bringing forward? What stops with you, or as we say in Ignite, it ran in my family till it ran into me, and then what are you taking forward? And ultimately, a man, his legacy is most often going to be his children, his family, the generations that live on beyond his life. So I like to put it in the sense of a living legacy. Like, what are you creating now in your life that will live on beyond your years? What is the stamp that you're bringing into your family name that is now going to be carried forward for all the generations to come? If you can think about your family line 200 years from now, what would be said about where you were in the family line? So these are the 4 pillars of kingship. Again, sovereignty, order, blessing, legacy. And again, we'll get into on maybe future episodes more into the details of that and questions you can ask and how you can apply that to your life. But the last piece I want to speak about to kind of bring this all together, because again, we've spoken about a lot. We've spoken about the shadow. We've spoken about the archetypes. We've spoken about how to now bring this into a way that you can integrate it on a daily basis. And that's going to be the AAA: awareness, acknowledgement, and action. As I was saying before in a couple of the examples, men often, when they have some kind of awareness, they finally look at something, when something is finally brought to them for the umpteenth time, often there's this jump to want to take action. Well, how do I fix it? Because we're wired as men to fix things, not feel them. Let me say that again. We're wired to fix things, not feel them. We cut off feel. But really, feeling is the superpower. Feeling is actually, when we do it in the right way, when we develop that emotional intelligence, the action we take is way more guided, has way better intention, and way better outcome typically. Action taken from stress does not have a good outcome. Action taken from a knowing has a way better outcome. My mentor, Donnie Epstein, will say, if it doesn't come from soul, it's going to be a redo. When you're trying to figure it out, when you're trying to understand how, and this is the 2 most common responses I get from men, like, I just need to figure it out and I want to know how to do it. They're coming from their mind, specifically the lower mind, the part of their mind that's running that fight or flight, and the actions will be congruent with that. But we want to be soul-led, when we want to really be in the grace and the vibe and the flow and in the groove, or however you describe it. We must be coming from a higher order. We must be coming from a higher energetic. So that higher energetic is actually achieved in that second A, the acknowledgement, the feeling of it. When you can take full ownership of what's going on in your life, when you can fully be literally brought to your knees in awe of what God and life is bringing to you for you to grow, the knowing is just the knowing after that. It's of course, because literally on a nervous system level, you've now flooded the frontal lobe of your brain with all that blood and all that firing of the nervous system. And now all of a sudden you see the bigger picture. You see the interconnections. You see the pathway. You see what you need to be shown. And then you take consistent action through your warrior energy to make that happen. But the knowing comes only after the crucible of the acknowledgement, which means feeling the feelings that you've been avoiding, feeling the feelings that are necessary to move through the energy. And there's something so powerful and so trustable in a man when he can be vulnerable enough and courageous enough to actually feel what he needs to feel. This is a fundamental piece of men's work, is being able to actually take ownership, feel the feelings, come into the knowing, and repeat that cycle. Awareness, acknowledgement, and action. Awareness, acknowledgement, and action. This is the fundamental way that we must use this framework. And so to kind of put this all together now, and the importance of this is so absolutely imperative to our learning and our growth as men. Remember, growth and contribution are the highest human needs we have. This is according to Tony Robbins. This teaching is really phenomenal, that we have 6 human needs, and the 2 highest needs we have as humans are needs of the soul, and it's growth and contribution. This is what we're accessing when we're accessing our king energy. So again, there's this shadow, this unhealed, repressed, darker part of yourself that will always be there, that when your resistance is low, when your stress is high, will come online and lead to a story you tell yourself that justifies the bad behaviors in your life. And when you are able to take ownership and acknowledge the pain that those behaviors have had and start to rewrite the story and the belief that was underlying there, and at a deeper level, touch the pain and the wound and the place where that conditioning was learned, it can transform how you express yourself in those moments. Now, I often tell men that, the real goal here with men's work is truthfully to fuck up less and to clean it up quicker when you do, and to take full ownership when those moments happen, because they're going to happen. Now, the goal is for them to have fewer and further between, and that's the work. That's the lifelong work of men's work. It's as long as you want the benefits, not a weekend seminar or an immersion. It's not doing one course. This is a lifelong skill set. Just like you would go to the gym and maintain your strength, you need to do the shadow work. You need to do the men's work for a lifetime to continue to keep those things at bay, those shadows, and then to have the full expression of these 4 masculine archetypes. Again, the lover, warrior, the magician, and the king. And the integration of how these different aspects of your subconscious work together. The beautiful thing is that we share this archetypal energy, these 4 energies, with every other man on the planet. This is why in a group setting, in a supportive brotherhood, this work can be so powerful, because when you hear other men share about what's going on in their life, 9 times out of 10, the men can relate and have similar experiences. And maybe that man speaks the thing that he needs to hear, or had gone through a certain pain in his life, and we can get the lesson of that without having to firsthand experience the pain. That is what unbound energy is all about. That's what a tier 2 consciousness is all about. Is I don't have to walk through that fire to know that it's hot. I could witness your journey and your growth through that very painful thing in your life and get the wisdom for me, and vice versa, because I have life experience that you'll probably never want to have to experience, that you can learn from too. In our group, we call that your work is my work. And it's a beautiful way in support and brotherhood and community to do the work. You do not have to bear this burden alone. So the last thing I want to talk about, and I didn't mention yet, are the 5 pitfalls, the 5 pains that all men experience. This is another fundamental piece of Ignite the King, and specifically men's work. We've identified 5 pains, and I've experienced all of them. So I'm just going to say where this comes from, that all men experience. So as you listen to these, see which one resonates the most. And there's probably going to be more than one, but which one resonates the most with you? The 5 are the pleaser. The second one is living in your head. The third one is being the lone wolf. The fourth one is what we call Groundhog's Day, living the same day over and over again. And the fifth one I'll call the check boxes of life, which means you have success without fulfillment. You've achieved all the things you need and want in your life and still feel unhappy. So the pleaser is the part of you that wants to just make everyone happy. You just want everyone to be happy. And by making everyone happy, nobody's happy, including yourself. On the far end of the spectrum, the pleaser is like the martyr, just kind of gives himself to everyone, takes care of everything, doesn't ask for anything. And it's a weak energy. And it's an energy that maybe 70% of the people, or the people are about 70% happy, including yourself. Nobody is honored. You didn't honor yourself. And you're just giving away your energy all the time to try to make everyone happy. The one that's living in his head is dead. That's number 2. Man that's living in his head is, again, using that lower mind to try to just navigate tasks and actions in his life. It's not connected to anything higher order, spiritual, or from a purpose or a mission. The one that's living in his head is trying to figure out everything all the time. The one that's living in his head is trying to understand why people hurt him. And in that constant search for a why, he'll never get to a new awareness. So always trying to figure things out, always try to be logical and calculated, but really void of emotional connection. The third one is the lone wolf. This is very popular among men, because I know as a boy, I was taught if you want something done right, you do it yourself, and other people are just going to mess things up. So we learn to not include others, not ask for help, not want help for others. And on some ways, this could be noble, that you take full responsibility for your actions, but it also limits what's possible in your life. It's often said that if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go Or if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Again, another support in the support of brotherhood and community, we can go so much further. Groundhog's Day, this is one that can be a total trap, because this is the one, like the boiling frog that sneaks up on you, is you're living the same day over and over again. And you wake up and it's a year later or 2 or 5 or even 10 years later. And you're like, where did my life go? Who's been living this life? It's been on autopilot. It's been unconscious. And it's going through the motions. This often can end up in a roommate situation with your wife, where you guys are just good partners and there's no polarity. It's all neutral and you're just kind of going through the motions. And you realize 10 years later, like, where'd the marriage go? And then someone wants a divorce and you're like, well, I thought I had this powerful relationship, but yet there was no passion, there was no energy, there was no polarity there. And the last one is the 5 check boxes, where you have the house, the car, the kids, the bank account, the relationship, the accolades, the titles, and it feels empty. It feels meaningless. It doesn't feel purposeful. You feel unfulfilled, unhappy. And as Tony Robbins, to quote him again, would say, this is the worst pain of them all, because you've achieved everything that the culture told you what success would look like, but yet it doesn't bring you the fulfillment. He talks about how there's a science of achievement, but there's the art of fulfillment. And this is the part that is uniquely you. What fulfills you is going to be unique to what fulfills me, to what fulfills the next man. We all do not have the same things, the same passions, the same desires. As a king and a man, it's part of your job is to get to what is your knowing about your desire. What is it that sets you alive? What is that brings passion to your life? What is it? Art? Is it music? Is it business? Is it relationships? Is it the beach? Is it climbing? Is it cycling? Is it art? What is it that floats your boat? What is it that lights you on fire? What is it where the passion is? What fulfills you? Often those things aren't related to money and material things. They can be, of course, but be fulfilled. And most men have been head down, driven, doing the right thing, taking care of their family, but they forget to take care of themselves. And that's the note I want to end on as we wrap up all of this. I know I've done a high-level overview of some of the biggest concepts in men's work: shadow work, archetypes, the 5 pains of men, the AAA, a lot in this episode, and we'll break down these further in subsequent episodes. But I wanted to give you, listener, the opportunity to get this all in one package, to really understand or have a deeper understanding of what's going on sort of in the energetic and the behind the scenes of what we're working with in men's work. Specifically in Ignite, we have immersions where we take men through a very carefully curated process to experience the archetypes, to experience this process of AAA, to get underneath where these 5 pains have existed and do the actual embodiment work to transform these. So we have another one coming up this May. That'll date this episode, May 2025 in Austin, Texas, where we have the King Immersion happening, and we have some spaces still open and applications open for that. So see the link in the show notes for a way to get on the calendar and have that conversation if that's something that interests you. It'll be in the show notes, the link tree. We'll have a link to the calendar there. I want to just take a moment and say thank you to the men that have been listening. We just crossed 100 subscribers on this channel, a small but mighty milestone. I'm proud that this word is getting out there, that men's work is becoming more normalized, that these are the conversations that men are having and need to have, frankly. And I'm grateful to be one of the people helping to lead the way to help men find that true purpose in life, to be a better man in their marriage, in their relationships and families and businesses, and ultimately making the world a better place. That's what this is all about. So with that, I'm going to sign off. I hope you men have a beautiful rest of your day. I look forward to sharing more with you soon. And aho.